ربي وسلامه ورحمته وبركاته على ذاك النبي الكريم نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue Sunday, August the 25th, 2019, after the Hijrah Mustafa, 2015 of the Gregorian calendar, which agrees with the month of the Hijjah, the 24th of the Hijjah in the year 1440 after the migration of the Prophet ﷺ. We continue Surah Thalatha by the great Imam al-Mujaddid rahimahullah wa jazahullahu anna wa an al-muslimin wa an al-sunnah khairul jaza wa da'afallahu fi mathubata. You'll find in Surah Thalatha with this book in its entirety revolves around the topic of preparation for the questions will be asked in the grave. The questions that will be asked in the grave. So everything that this book contains are, if you want to say for lack of better words, genetics of the Muslim, of those who understand Islam with a proper understanding. Not those who generally profess the religion of Islam, but they're upon some type of deviation or some type of misguidance or discrepancy in their foundation or their conviction. So we continue in Surah Thalatha, and we were talking about the ayah, or rather we resume the explanation of the principle of the great Imam al-Mujaddid rahimahullah that he mentioned in Surah Thalatha, where he says that al-asl al-thani, that the second principle is ma'rifatu din al-Islam. I have a knowledge of the religion of al-Islam with evidences and proofs. So ma'rifatu din al-Islam bil-adillah, having knowledge of the religion of al-Islam with evidences and proofs. Then you'll find, like we said, every principle that he brings in his book, he substantiates it with evidences from the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Messenger alayhi salatu wassalam. If everyone looks, we were discussing, you'll find that the principle, excuse me everyone, on my way here something flew in my throat, I don't know what it was. You'll find that it says, from the meanings of La ilaha illallah, or from the meanings of what every Muslim is supposed to understand of La ilaha illallah, what the meaning contains is al-bara'a min ash-shirk wa ahli. Rather, I'm sorry everyone, I apologize. The meaning of al-Islam, not just La ilaha illallah, even though La ilaha illallah also contains this meaning that I'm going to mention now. As the meaning of, as we said, Muslim. As you'll find that a lot of Muslims, even though they say they are Muslim, but they do not know what it means. Because if they knew what it means, they wouldn't be involved or partaking in certain affairs that opposes the meaning of al-Islam, which shows either the one's lack of knowledge in this regard, or they have not educated themselves properly or fundamentally. So the meaning of al-Islam, as we talked about in many classes, we said the meaning of al-Islam, or the meaning of being Muslim, as we said, is al-istislamu lillahi bit-tawheed, wal-inqiyadu lahu bit-ta'ah, wal-bara'atu min ash-shirki wa ahli. Is surrendering oneself to Allah by unifying Him in His worship. And this is all part of preparation for death and the answers that will be asked in the grave. Is that one actualizes what we're saying and explaining now. Al-istislamu lillahi bit-tawheed, wal-inqiyadu lahu bit-ta'ah. And also one submitting himself to Allah by obeying Him and His messenger. Al-inqiyadu lahu bit-ta'ah, surrendering or submitting oneself by obedience. And this is the last part of what we were speaking about last class, or what we left off. To separate oneself from polytheism and its people. That's also the meaning of Islam, or being Muslim. And it's also from the meanings of La ilaha illallah. Rather, La ilaha illallah, it contains, or these meanings are in La ilaha illallah, excuse me. These meanings are in La ilaha illallah. From actualizing La ilaha illallah is setting oneself free from polytheism and its people. Then if you look in the books where we stopped, you'll find that the ayah that the great Imam that he brought, where he says, لَقَدْ كَانَتْ لَكُمْ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ فِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ إِذْ قَالُوا لِقَوْمِهِمْ إِنَّا بُرَآءُ مِنْكُمْ وَمِمَّا تَعْبُدُونَ مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ كَفَرْنَا بِكُمْ وَبَدَا بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمُ الْعَدَاوَةُ وَالْبَغْضَاءُ أَبَدًا حَتَّى تُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَحْدَهُ. That verily indeed for you is a good or excellent example in Ibrahim and those who were with him. And this is what I explained last class, that you'll find that in this ayah is La ilaha illallah. You'll find in this ayah, which is in Surah Al-Mumtahina, ayah number 4, in ayah number 4, in Surah Al-Mumtahina, you'll find that La ilaha illallah is implied in this ayah. For example, قَدْ كَانَتْ لَكُمْ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ فِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ. So that's the meaning of one, affirming La ilaha illallah. And from the meanings of as we said, from the meanings of La ilaha illallah is one, loving Allah and loving the awliya of Allah. Loving those who are close to Allah Ta'ala, who are the people of Tawheed. Because it's not just enough that you love Allah. You also have to love who Allah loves. It's not just enough that you love Allah, but you have to love who Allah loves. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the people of monotheism, and the people who unify Him in His worship, and the people who embrace Islam with the proper understanding, with the people of Hadith and the people of Sunnah, and the people of the proper methodology, who traverse the path of the Salaf. They are the awliya of Allah Ta'ala. So it's not just enough that from Tawheed or from monotheism or from actualizing and purifying your testimony of La ilaha illallah that you just say that you love Allah. Or you just say that you love Allah verbally without bringing what substantiates it of proofs and evidences, or what validates that testimony, which is the actions, which is implemented in what we do outwardly. And that's not enough either. It's incumbent upon one to also love who Allah loves. And that's from the meaning of La ilaha illallah. From the meaning of La ilaha. For the meaning of La ilaha, none has the right to be worshipped. You'll find that is also implied of that testimony is someone freeing himself and separating himself from those who Allah hates, who are the people of polytheism and the people of disbelief. For verily those who do that, who separate themselves, has now played a tremendous part in actualizing La ilaha illallah. When you say illallah, except Allah, also what is implied is that you affirm the oneness of Allah, but you also love who Allah loves. And the people who Allah loves is the people of Tawheed, and the people of monotheism, and the people who unify Allah in His worship. You'll find that it says in the ayah, verily indeed for you is an excellent example to be followed with Ibrahim and those who are with him. So you'll find that this is what they call al-bara'a or al-wala' wal-bara'. One showing his allegiance or his love or his loyalty to those who Allah loves, who are the people of Tawheed and Sunnah and Minhaj al-Salafi, All of them are the awliya of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Here you'll find in the ayah Surah Al-Mumtahina that this meaning is applied. Listen, it says, very Ibrahim and those who are with him. So that shows that they came together. And they loved one another because all of them loved Allah, subhanahu jalla fil ula. And they also applied the qa'idah, or the principle of showing their loyalty and allegiance and their close love and taking as confidants those who love Allah. So that's part of illallah. 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 Except Allah. Except Allah. And the kalimat al-tawheed. When you say illallah, what is applied in it? Not only you are affirming Allah, but you profess that you love Allah and love who Allah loves. Notice in the ayah Surah Al-Mumtahina it says, إِذْ قَالُوا لِقَوْمِهِمْ. Hence that they said to their people, we free ourselves from you and what you worship besides Allah. So that's La ilaha illa ilaha. So not only are they freeing themselves from those, or not only are they freeing themselves from what is associated as partners along with Allah in the ayah, but they're also bringing something else, which is to set themselves free to set themselves free and to separate those who also worship those idols along with Allah. And notice it says it again. Kafarna bikum, we disbelieve in you, and it has appeared or manifested between us and you enmity and hatred forever until you believe in Allah alone. Until you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. So this type of separation, which is the meaning of illallah, is all key factors and elements to purifying your monotheism and your belief, which is preparation for death. When the angels ask those questions, for all these principles and implementation of them is all part of preparation for this reality and this inevitable abode that all of us will face when we die. So that is the ayah. That's where we stopped at last class. We stopped at last class where we were speaking about this ayah. For verily al-bara'ah, verily separation from those who Allah hates, who's the people of disbelief, or the people of hypocrisy, those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates, is all part of, one, purifying his testimony of La ilaha illallah. And then he has to love who Allah loves. What is the benefits of that? There's so many benefits that we don't have time to mention all of them. But one, separating himself from those who disbelieve in Allah and His Messenger, and disbelieve in Al-Islam, and those who are the people of polytheism, the people of disbelief from the polytheists, and other than them, even the people of different ideologies, such as, for example, of communism or liberalism or what have you. For one, separating himself and not believing in their beliefs, and separating himself, there's separating from himself from their beliefs and the people who believe in them. There's a lot of different blessings that comes as a result of it. You'll find that Ahl Ilm mention that if one was to actualize their bara'ah, of them separating themselves from polytheism in its people, or disbelief in its people, or hypocrisy in its people, there's a lot of different blessings that comes as a result of it. For example, it will be a reason for an abundance of blessings being bestowed upon an individual. The example of that which comes in Surah Maryam, in ayat number 49 and 50. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, فَلَمَّا اعْتَزَلَهُمْ وَمَا يَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ وَهَبْنَا لَهُ إِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ وَكُلًّا جَعَلْنَا نَبِيًّا وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُم مِّن رَحْمَتِنَا وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُمْ لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ عَلِيًّا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, listen closely. For verily when Ibrahim, when he separated himself from them, meaning the polytheists and those who disbelieved in his message, he separated from the polytheists and his people. What happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him something when this happened. وَهَبَنَا لَهُ إِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ. So when he actualized separating himself and disbelieving in those idols, and disbelieving in those different ideologies that are in contrast to what Allah sent down, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him something. Rather, he gave him something, rather he gave him more than just merely something. He says, when he did that, he says, we granted to Ibrahim Ishaq wa Ya'qub. We granted to Ibrahim those two tremendous righteous children who became prophets and messengers. He said, we granted him Ishaq wa Ya'qub. And we made both of them prophets, and they were prophets, And we also granted to them and bestowed upon them from our mercy, and we granted them a tongue of truth which was raised in degrees. So that is from the different blessings that Allah will give one if he actualizes al-bara'ah, where he separates himself from polytheism and idolatry in its people. Meaning not taking them as confidants or taking them as people who are close. But however, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, we want to clarify, but to still treat them in a good manner, to display all the good qualities of Islam and not to oppress them. But we still do not believe in their belief, just as they don't believe in ours. But we disbelieve and we do not affirm that what they believe is the truth. Rather, we what? Disbelieve in it. And when we separate ourselves, meaning we separate ourselves in taking them as confidants. But as far as good treatment among them, to show and display the good qualities of Islam, then this is something that's incumbent upon us, especially in these days and times. To show how the Muslims can be truthful, to show how they have good dealings, and they have good manners, and we display this out of having the intention that we want them to embrace the truth, that we want them to embrace what we're upon, and we want them to be properly guided. And the only way this is achieved is to show and display the good qualities of Islam. And I'm going to bring another different benefit that confirms what I'm mentioning now. So from the benefits of al-wala wal-bara, from displaying loyalty and taking as confidants those who are close to Allah, from the people of Tawheed, and showing loyalty to them and good treatment to them, and taking them as people who are what? Close. And one, separating himself from disbelief and idolatry in his people. We just said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when Ibrahim did this, Allah granted him something tremendous. Gave him those two tremendous righteous children, his sons, Ishaq and Ya'qub, and Allah bestowed prophethood upon them. And he granted them of his mercy, and he made them, and upon them, the tongue of truth, which was raised in degrees. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave comfort to Ibrahim. And that feeling of loneliness. As we know that Ibrahim was granted children later in his age, where he gave up and thought that how can I have children and I've reached this point in my life where it's very far off that I will have children. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed, displayed to us when Ibrahim actualized the principle of wala wal bara. Allah wa ta'ala gave him something tremendous by granting him children and honoring his prophet Ibrahim, who is Khalil Allah or Khalil Rahman, by giving him those two tremendous righteous prophets who is Haqq and Ya'qub. And he bestowed upon them his mercy and granted them a tongue of truth and a tongue of veracity. For verily, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, these are from the benefits of separating oneself from disbelief in its people, meaning not taking them as confidants. And we say taking them as confidants, as that means being involved in their affairs and taking them as those who you love and taking them as people who are intimate as far as being close. I mean being close in their relationships and being people that you take certain affairs that are confidential, where you aid them over the people of truth and the people of Islam, the people of Tawheed. From also the benefits of this qa'idah of actualizing al-wala wal-bara, when one separates himself from disbelief and idolatry in his people, something else happens. Something else happens. It will be a reason for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granting honor and granting stability in the land. Granting honor and power and stability in the land. As you'll find that Muslims these days, and it's sad, that a lot of them have the mentality that when you take those of polytheism and the people of idolatry and the people of disbelief, when you show loyalty to them and you take them as people who are close or confidants in this truth, they think that this affair is binding upon us, especially in these days and times. Now to display loyalty and to take them as those who are close, they say that this is the only way that we can attain true benefits for the Muslims. And this will repel and raise from the Muslims the plots of those who plot against them, and it will remove from them their harm. You'll find, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, that this type of mentality, or this belief, that this is exactly the call or the ideologies and the way of thinking of the hypocrites. For those who say this type of statement, for example, the only way that we can attain benefits of this world is that basically, if you want to say, for lack of better words, is that we have to sell out. Or we have to, that we have to compromise. We have to compromise. We have to compromise in order to attain certain benefits. That if we were to show or display Islam properly, if we was to actualize it properly or practice it, or implement it the way how the Messenger did it, then what will happen is that the non-Muslims, or those who plot against us, from the people who are the enemies of Islam, this is the only way we can repel their harm from us. And this is the only way we will be able to attain certain benefits for the Muslims. And that their harm will be removed by us compromising, or by us watering down certain affairs, especially our foundation and our principles and our foundations. Like we said, that this type of statement is the call of the hypocrites. This is what they said. This is the exact statement. The exact statement you'll find, which is in Surah Al-Ma'idah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, فَتَرَى الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٍ يُسَارِعُونَ فِيهِمْ يَقُولُونَ نَخْشَى أَن تُصِيبَنَا دَائِرَةٌ فَعَسَى اللَّهُ أَن يَأْتِيَ بِالْفَتْحِ أو أمر من عنده فيصبحوا على ما أسروا في أنفسهم نادمين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, you'll find those who have in their hearts a sickness. They hasten towards them, meaning taking them as confidants, to be close to them, to be around them, and to say to them, for example, we're not with them, we're with you. We don't like those people who are practicing monotheism. We're with you. Why are they doing this? Listen to the ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, they say, we're afraid that they will afflict us with some type of harm, some type of da'irah, some type of harm, some type of plot, something that will be a cause of our doom or our demise or us being humiliated. So in order to repel that, they hasten towards taking them as what? Those who are close and those who are confidants, in order for this harm to be removed. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that this was the call of the hypocrites. This is what they said. He said, فَعَصَى اللَّهُ أَن يَأْتِيَ بِالْفَتْحِ. That he said maybe as a result of us performing or displaying this type of compromisal, maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring forth some type of victory or some type of affair from him in which they will become, as a result of it, upon what they kept secret within themselves, very regretful. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing that this was the call and the statement of the hypocrites. And this you'll find that a lot of those who've deviated in the principles of al-Islam, from those who water it down and compromise, from the Muslims who are either ignorant of the foundation of the religion, or they have been subdued by their weak iman, by their weak faith. They have now fell into what the munafiqeen called the people to. Exactly. Rather, you'll find the affairs in contrast to what they believe. For verily, separation of the non-Muslims, separation in showing and displaying one's disbelief in what they're upon, it will be a reason for honor being restored and brought back to the Muslims, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give and bestow upon them stability in the earth and power for them, just as what took place during the time of the Sahaba. And that the affair by Allah wa ta'ala and in his bestowment of his blessings and giving honor will aid the believers and aid the people of monotheism if they carry this out. And it's in contrast to what a lot of the Muslims these days think. But however, like we said, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, it takes strength. And strength is something that a lot of us are lacking. Wala hawla wala quwwata illa billah. Strength is a lot of what we're lacking in people who are strong. Rather, we live in days where people are extremely weak, especially for this world that is temporary. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq and to make us strong. Because we definitely live in the days where people are very weak, especially in front of this world and its glamour and its glitter and its affairs are embellished. You'll find that a lot of people are weak due to it, and they fall into the traps of shaitan, where they compromise their principles and their foundations due to the fact of some worldly gain or some commodity of this dunya. And as a result of it, like we said, the affair becomes where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala humiliates us. And he humiliates the Muslims, and he humiliates and disgraces us, and he gives the power to the non-Muslims in which we see today. Rather, in contrast, you'll find that if we was to remain strong and carry out the statement of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, where he mentioned in Majmu' al-Fatawa, which is the 28th volume, page 639. Shaykh al-Islam says in his book, وَصَلَاحُ الدِّينِ وَأَهْلُ بَيْتِهِ مَا كَانُوا يُوَالُونَ النَّصَارَى وَلَمْ يَكُونُوا يَسْتَعْمِلُونَ مِنْهُمْ أَحَدًا فِي شَيْءٍ مِنْ أُمُورِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ أَصْلًا. Shaykh al-Islam mentioned in Majmu' al-Fatawi, or you can say Majmu' al-Fatawa, or you can say Majmu' al-Fatawi. Listen to what he says. He said that the purification and the uprightness of the religion, Salah ad-Din, the purification and that soundness of the religion and its people, especially in the past with the Sahaba. He says you'll never find that they took as confidants the people of Kufr. He said from the Christians, taking them as confidants. And so, for example, you'll find certain Muslims, and I've heard this, and it's sad to say that you'll find that Muslims actually married in a church in order to please a woman who was a Christian. He took his affairs to a church, and for example, allow a preacher to marry him. You've taken them as confidants. This is the type of affairs to show, and as a result of it, that the non-Muslims have no respect for you. They openly display disrespect because of these type of what? These type of matters. And when they see the Muslims, for example, wearing ties, and they see the woman wearing a gown, a white gown with music playing in the church and walking down a specific aisle with now throwing flowers with little children behind them. When the Muslims see this, they have now understood that you're a weak individual because you're trying to now be like us. And how you expect us now to embrace what you're upon, when you're trying to resemble us and what we do. Rather, they understand the opposite. So you want to be like us? So now they figure and drop the conclusion that they have the upper hand over you. These are from the affairs of taking them as confidants. From these affairs is involved inside of their politics. It's taking them as confidants. Being legislative members, embracing their system, praising their system, being involved in their affairs and legislating laws of their land and being involved inside of their affairs. Once you have entered into their affairs, they have lost respect. Why? Because you're trying to be like us, and you're not trying to be in which your religion calls you to be. You'll find that Shaykh al-Islam says that they never used to take as confidants and show that this type of loyalty to the Christians. And they never used to utilize any of them from the affairs that's involving the Muslims at all. What came as a result of it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them aid and gave them victory over their enemies, despite of the small amount of money. Qillat al-mal, not having a lot of wealth and not having a lot of numbers. Then Shaykh al-Islam says, وَلِيَعْتَبِرِ الْمُعْتَبِرِ وَلِيَعْتَبِرِ الْمُعْتَبِرِ وَلِيَعْتَبِرِ الْمُعْتَبِرِ بِسِيرَةِ نُورِ الدِّينِ وَصَلَاحِ الدِّينِ. Rather, a person, let him take in consideration and take an exhortation by the history of Nur al-Din wa Salah al-Din. ثُمَّ الْعَادِلِ. Then he's talking about different names of those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave aid, whether they over the Crusaders, of those who slaughtered the Muslims in millions. And they were Christians, the Crusaders, from those of the past. All you have to do is look at the history. As these Christians, they people who oppressed the Muslims and slaughtered them in the millions. But those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave aid, certain, for example, names such as Nur al-Din, wa Salah al-Din, Thumma al-Adil, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them stability and power, and He gave them aid, and gave them victory by conquering these lands and giving them different conquests, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala humiliated the people of idolatry and disbelief, who are the true enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لما قاموا من ذلك بما قاموا به وليعتبر بسيرة من والى النصارى كيف أظله الله وكبته, as it says. He says how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when they stood for this foundation and they cleansed it. He says, and what they applied and what they applied, and what they did of what we're mentioning now. Let a person take in consideration by the history also what took place of those who took the people of disbelief and the Christians as confidants, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when they did that, Allah humiliated them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it a reason for their demise and for their humiliation. And this is what you see today, how the Muslims are humiliated and disgraced, and how the non-Muslims lose respect because of the Muslims compromising their fundamentals, compromising their belief, compromising and watering down this affair of wala wal bara, of showing allegiance and loyalty, or displaying, taking one as confidants, the people who Allah love, and the opposite, which is showing one's disallegiance, his separation, and his disloyalty to those who Allah hates. And this is part of the meaning of La ilaha illallah. This is part of the meaning of La ilaha illallah. And it's from its conditions. Some of them even say that it's from the conditions of La ilaha illallah. Is wala wal bara. And some of them mention that as being from the pillars of the arkan, which is La ilaha illallah is established upon. Some of Ahl ilm, to show its great importance. And how Allah Ta'ala, that is not incumbent upon one just to profess this testimony verbally, but to also bring its conditions, which validates it, and to also stay away from what invalidated. And from those affairs is falling into what a lot of Muslims these days have fallen into. Like we said, and I want to remind everyone, just because one displays their disbelief, they can do it in a manner which shows that one is not ignorant. One can display, and if a non-Muslim says, why don't you believe and embrace Christianity? And we say, we do not believe in Christianity. We do not believe that Jesus even died on the cross in the first place. If one embraces that belief, that means he's compromising his religion, because you are compromising what Allah has clearly mentioned in the last final revelation that has not been changed or altered by any man, where Allah has established the haqq in the final revelation that Jesus never died on the cross. It was some other man. And you to display and show that you believe that Jesus came that he came where Allah was a part of him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was a part of Jesus, or Jesus was a part of Allah, or he was a third of three, or that Allah died, or that Jesus died on the cross for the atonement of the sins of mankind. You have belied what Allah has mentioned in this book. You have rejected it. You compromised. You rejected the revelation and the truth that Allah has sent and laid down in his book clearly. Jesus, the son of Mary, never died on the cross. Rather, he never died in the first place. That's the reason why he's going to come back as a human being, because he never died in the first place. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly showed there was another man that was put in his place, and the resemblance of Jesus was put on that man, and they killed him. So that shows that Jesus never died on the cross. For you now to wear a cross as a Muslim and say, I believe that Jesus died on the cross, that's compromisal. If you wear a cross around your neck, that's compromisal. If you now go to their church and get married in it, and you allow a preacher to now marry you off in a church, that's compromisal. All of that is from the affairs of wala wal bara, which you did not actualize. These affairs are dangerous because it could be your reason for you not given the tawfiq to when the angels ask you these questions in the grave. Because if you don't actualize this affair, it will be a reason for your doom in the grave. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq. From the other affairs of the benefits of wala wal bara. Now listen to this. أن البراءة من الكفار من أسباب دخولهم في الإسلام. Allahu Akbar. From actualizing wala wal bara. For actualizing this principle of separation and showing one's separation from disbelief and idolatry will be the reason for them entering the fold of Islam. From what is legislated, or from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated, is that showing disloyalty and hatred of disbelief and separating and showing one's disloyalty, or one separating or cutting off himself, has a lot of different wisdoms behind it. From the wisdoms that will come is that it will be a reason for Islam becoming mighty. And it will be a reason for the people accepting the truth and them truly attaining happiness in this world by them embracing it, which took place with the virtuous centuries in the past from the Sahaba and the first generations. That the Yahud that the Jews, especially during the time of the Message of Allah, that they became afraid. They became afraid, and what they were spreading of falsehood, that it became subdued. Especially for those who made war with the Muslims, from the Jews, from the Christians. His name was Ka'b ibn al-Ashraf. And he was from those who displayed severe enmity towards the Muslims. Severe enmity and hatred and war, and wanted to kill the message of Allah, and kill and dismantle and remove the truth and the light from the earth. What came as a result of it, when he showed this enmity towards them, the Muslims, as a result of it, displayed wala wal bara, and also this individual who was Ka'b ibn al-Ashraf, he was killed at the hands of Muhammad ibn Maslama. You'll find that Ibn Ishaq, that he mentioned in Sirat ibn Ishaq, in his book, which is a type of book in Sirah, that it says in a narration that the Yahud, it says, فَأَصْبَحْنَا, that they said, فَأَصْبَحْنَا وَقَدْ خَافَتْ يَهُودٍ بِوَقَعَتِنَا بِعَدُوِّ اللَّهِ فَلَيْسَ بِهَا يَهُودِي إِلَّا وَهُوَ يَخَافُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ. He said that we became, meaning we became with might and respect and honor. He says, when the Yahud had displayed their enmity and hatred to the Muslims, and they also made war and plots to eradicate them and decimate them. He says, when we had killed their heads, because when that battle took place, Ka'b ibn Ashraf was killed, and he was from the head of them. He said, from the enemy of Allah, in which what came as a result of it, there was not any Jew except that he became afraid. And they started to what? Show respect. They started to now show respect. So these is from the different benefits of wala wal bara. From them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give in a reciprocal, or He will give in exchange for those who give or display or implement this principle properly. He will give them an abundance of blessing. Just as what He gave to Khalil Rahman, Ibrahim. He gave him those two righteous sons who became prophets. And their status was raised in levels. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also gave honor to the Muslims. And He gave them stability in the earth, Timkeen. Gave them stability in the earth. And raised their levels. And He gave them aid. And He gave them nasr, of help and aid. Where their religion became prominent and the uppermost in the earth. And the Muslims and the non-Muslims showed respect. They showed them respect. And gave them reverence as a result of them sticking to their what? To what they believed in. Sticking to what and clinging to what they believed in. As a result of it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instilled fear in their hearts and respect and reverence to the Muslims. And on contrast to what is today, as now it's become the opposite. The Muslims in their heart have fear, and now they have fear. And now a lot of the non-Muslims have what? They're the ones that have that timkeen, or that stability over the Muslims. And that empowerment over them. So now you see that the Muslims, they respect them and look up to them. And they display and they want to be like them. In a lot of ways. And this is the result of humiliation and disgrace, as the Muslims have, and especially from those from the deviant sects. And we're not talking about Ahlul Haq. Rather, Ahlul Haq are the ones who are trying their best to apply what we're speaking about now. And it's sad to say that those from the deviant sects of the Muslims make war for those who are trying to rightfully and properly apply what we're speaking about today. And what will you think as a result of it if you go against this principle? And not only as one goes against it, but they actually make war with those who are trying to implement it. Taib. If you look in your books, everyone, for now, as we were discussing, from La ilaha illallah, from its conditions and its meanings, and like we said, some of them say it is the pillar, it is the foundation of the religion, which is wala wal bara. Now listen to this ayah. So the great Imam that he put in his book, that he put in his book another ayah, which comes in Surah Ali Imran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, ayah number 64, in Surah Ali Imran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تعالوا إلى كلمة سواء بيننا وبينكم أن لا نعبد إلا الله ولا نشرك به شيئا ولا يتخذ بعضنا بعضا أربابا من دون الله فإن تولوا فقولوا اشهدوا بأننا مسلمون. We'll mention this ayah and then we'll stop and then we'll go to the next class. Say, O people of the book, come to a word that is sawa, that is equal between us and you, that we do not worship except Allah. La ilaha illallah is in there. And we do not set up partners with him anything. And we do not take each other as lords besides Allah. And if they turn away, say, bear witness that we are Muslimun. Bear witness that we are Muslimun. A lot of people, when they read this ayah, some of them misunderstand it. So we'll go over the tafsir. We'll go over the tafsir of this ayah in light of what the Salaf mentioned. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, say, O people of the book, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about, of course, the Jews and the Christians. The word ta'alu in the Arabic language means halummu wa aqbilu. نجتمع نحن وأنتم على شيء معين بينه بقوله أن لا نعبد إلا الله. When a person says ta'alu, it's as if he's calling a group of people. It's like saying ta'ala, come here. Come. Let us gather. Now listen. Let us gather, us and you, upon a specific affair. What is that affair? La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah is mentioned in the ayah, but in a different wording. An la na'buda illallah. That we do not worship except Allah. That's la ilaha illallah. You'll find that Ahl Ilm say when a person says ta'alu, come, what is implied is that the Muslims are firm, they are firm and stable upon what they're upon. That they're not compromising anything of their religion. La yatanazalun an shay min dinihim. They're not compromising anything from their religion. You tell someone to come here, meaning I'm firm where I'm at. I'm not moving, so please come here. That we are al-a'law wa ghayruhum al-adna wal-asfal. That we are the ones that's upon the truth. Whether they are al-adna wal-asfal. That's as if they're at the bottom and you're telling them to come up, come here. And they, meaning the people of Tawheed, are the people of the truth only. And you're affirming as if that you are upon what you're upon, of falsehood. وأنه لا التفات في عرض الطريق لأنه لا يجتمع التوحيد والشرك. Listen to what he says. And that there's no turning and displaying this type of what? This type of way that we're showing, where now Tawheed will gather with polytheism, or that faith will gather with disbelief in the heart of an individual ever. A person would say, how is this? Where do you take this understanding? Where is it derived from? You'll find that in that ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he revealed one of the greatest ayat and the shortest ayat in the book of Allah, where a lot of us recite it, but we don't realize what is being recited, is Surah Al-Kafirun. Surah Al-Kafirun is the shortest, one of the most shortest surah in the Quran, that displays from beginning to the end wala wal bara. that displays from beginning to the end, showing disavowalment and separation from disbelief and polytheism in its people. You see it clearly. قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ لَا أَعْبُدُ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ وَلَا أَنَا عَابِدُونَ مَا عَبَدْتُمْ وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ وَلِيَ دِينِ. O you who disbelieve, يا أيها الكافرون لا أعبد ما تعبدون. Shortest surah, one of the most shortest surah in the Quran, and it's clearly displaying wala wal bara. Now I'm going to bring how it supports the meaning in this ayat, which is a surah to Al-Imran. Now listen to this. Before this ayat, surah Al-Kafirun was revealed, the polytheists asked for the Messenger of Allah ﷺ to compromise with us. For example, they said to him, O Muhammad, worship our deities for 1 year. We'll worship your deity for 1 year. Worship our deities for 1 year, or our deity for 1 year. We'll worship your deity for 1 year. So let's make a deal. Let's compromise. So upon this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded, أَمَرَهُ اللَّهُ بِإِعْلَانِ الْمُفَاصَلَةِ التَّامَّةِ وَالْبَرَاءَةِ الْكَامِلَةِ وَبَيَّنَ لَهُ أَنَّ الشِّرْكَ وَالتَّوْحِيدَ لَا يَجْتَمِعَانِ فَأَنزَلَ عَلَيْهِ سُورَةَ الْكَافِرُونَ. Allahu Akbar. When they made this type of proposal to the Prophet ﷺ, and they offered this proposal, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded to openly display al-mufasalat at-tamma, a complete separation and a complete what? A complete separation and a complete disavowalment. And he clarified that polytheism, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clarified to him that polytheism and tawheed will never be unified. It will never come together. And Allah sent down this surah. He sent upon them, O you who disbelieve. To the end of the ayah. So when a person says, O people of the book, come to what is a word between us and you. It's as if the Muslims are displaying and showing we're firm upon what we're upon of monotheism. Come, meaning that you move from there to here. That we come together upon what? Upon the truth. What's the truth? La ilaha illallah. But it was mentioned here in the ayat in another way. An la na'buda illallah. Same thing. La ilaha illallah still mentioned. And it's also wa la nushrika bihi. Again. Illallah. Wa la nushrika bihi. Excuse me. La ilaha is mentioned again. La nushrika bihi shay'a. We do not set up partners with him. La ilaha is again mentioned. وَلَا يَتَّخِذَ بَعْضُنَا بَعْضًا أَرْبَابًا مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ. And we do not take each other as lords besides Allah. La ilaha illallah is mentioned again. And then it's given the details of it. So saying that if we used to come together, what will have to be actualized is what we just mentioned. That we do not worship except Allah. We do not set up partners along with Allah anything. Anything. Whether it be a tree, whether it be a rock, whether it be an individual, whether it be a person, whether it be a man, whether it be a woman. Whether it be superstitions, whether it be myths, whether it be old folklore, or belief in luck, or bad luck, or bad omens, or superstitions, or worshiping the devil. This is all a part of what? You tell the Christians to come, that we gather upon this truth here. That we have to rid ourselves of all these beliefs. And you come to what we're upon because this is our belief. To separate ourselves from the worship of the sun, the worship of the moon, the worship of men, the worship and the belief in bad luck, the practice of magic. All of these things and these affairs cause corruption and cause corruption in the earth. The practice of magic, the belief of superstitions and myths and zodiac signs. All this is part of La ilaha illallah. The practice of magic. And also, that's just some examples, and that's not the only examples. There's more than that. The worship of the dead, the worship of men, the worship of people, whether they be righteous or wicked, the worship of the creation, the worship of the devil, the worship of the jinn, the worship of people, making sujood and prostrating to them, and asking them in your prayers for certain affairs that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do. All this is now telling the people of disbelief from the Jews and the Christians, come to this word, because this is the truth. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought another affair in the ayah from the meaning of La ilaha illallah. وَلَا يَتَّخِذَ بَعْضُنَا بَعْضًا أَرْبَابًا مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. Also, if you want to gather with us, there's another affair that has to be actualized, that we do not take each other as lords besides Allah, tabaraka wa ta'ala, Allahu Akbar, which is now creeping in another type of what? Rebuttal against those who involve themselves in politics. What's pertaining to now people becoming legislative members who legislate laws or legislate regulations or legislate systems or protocol or laws that govern a land, that they come and bring forth these affairs from their own selves, rejecting the legislations that Allah has sent down to govern humanity. That's also part of Tawheed that you see mentioned in the ayah. That we do not take each other as lords besides Allah. Meaning, and also for what? For what we legislate. For what we want, legislate. Of what? Comes in those different systems and communism, liberalism, democracy. Being a communist or liberalist or conservative. All these affairs goes and opposes La ilaha illallah. It opposes it. Because you're taking people who legislate as lords besides Allah, because Allah is the only one that has laid down not only how to properly worship Him. When Allah sent the truth to the Messenger of Allah, Allah gave everything to the Messenger of Allah of what will also govern a land, so it can be what? Administrated in its affairs properly. Not only did Allah send down how to worship Him as far as in the affairs of worship, as far as prayer and all the other different affairs, but also in how laws and different types of protocol and systems for a land to be governed by and to be administered, those affairs, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also laid it down clearly. We do not need to bring forth laws from our own self. When Allah sent the truth, Allah sent everything we needed in this world that we live in, so we can all attain happiness and we will not be divided amongst ourselves, bickering and arguing back and forth of what law or what protocol or what legislation is better for human beings, because this will take away tax cuts and that will raise tax cuts. This will now bring this down. This will remove the deficit. This will now lessen the deficit. No. This is all this bickering and arguing where you see clearly in front of the non-Muslims that they do day and night. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as a mercy upon the Muslims, alleviated us from this. If they were to apply Islam correctly, there would be none of this bickering, arguing, and all these different types of controversy. If they were to cling to what Allah has sent down. Allah gave us what is adequate and more. If the Muslims would just stick to it. But instead, you find that a lot of Muslim countries are adopting these affairs of democracy and these affairs of liberalism and these affairs of what shows clearly as the sun in the sky destroys societies. And their systems are all based upon oppressing the poor and making the rich rich. You see it clearly here in America. The system here is designed to make the rich more rich and the poor more poor. You see it clearly. And there will never be a people that have treat or mistreat their poor, where you'll find that Allah gives them what? Longevity, or where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them success in their affairs. Rather, every country and every land that oppresses their poor, Allah sends disgrace and humiliation upon that land. And if you do not see what's going on around you now of humiliation, disgrace, and chaos in this land that we're living in, then I don't know where or what world you're living in. So these are the affairs in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly says in the ayah, let us gather with us and you upon these affairs. Come to us. But if you come, we are firm upon where we're upon, but you have to actualize everything that is containing the meaning of La ilaha illallah, which is to separate yourself from polytheism, from the worship of the sun, the worship of the moon, the worship of mankind, the worship of the dead, the worship of the shaitan, the worship of the devil, the worship of animals, the worship of statues, the worship of people, the worship of any human being, whether they be righteous or wretched, the belief in omens, the belief in bad luck, the belief in superstitions, the belief in zodiac signs, the practice of magic, and also one believing that he also is the reason for why he has certain things in his affairs in his life. What am I talking about? I'll discuss that later. For example, you ascribing a bounty to yourself instead of ascribing it to Allah, to the one who's the only one that can give every good that every human being has, is also part of monotheism, and also disbelieving in the different systems and beliefs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also prohibits us from embracing. From all the different systems in the society, to separate yourself by not believing in it. But however, and I keep reminding the brothers and sisters, to display and show all the good qualities of Islam, but doing it without compromising. Doing it without compromising. Having good manners, displaying showing the good qualities of the religion, showing that you do not lie to the Muslims, non-Muslims, and to the Muslims. That you do not lie to the non-Muslims, that you do not disrespect them and their property and their wealth, that you now want to destroy their property and their wealth, and violating them and mistreatment of them and trying to hurt them or hurt their children or hurt their families. This is all a part of da'wah and showing and displaying the good qualities and the good traits of Islam so they can embrace it. But at the same time, if they was to ask you, why don't you believe what I believe? Then we say, of course, we do not believe that Jesus died on the cross. You stay firm, but you do it in a respectable manner with knowledge and evidences and proofs. Saying for example, this is just an example. I do not believe, for example, in democracy. If someone was to ask you, why? Then you now have to if you now make this statement, you cannot just say, oh, that's just my belief. You have to have knowledge of substantiating your statement. You cannot just say it based upon ignorance or just being rude or just saying, that's just my belief. I respect it. No. You back it up with evidences and proofs by saying democracy, first of all, our belief, we believe in the monotheism of Allah. And when Allah sent the truth to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, He gave in everything what we need of how to govern a land, of laws and legislations and systems and protocol. Allah gave everything we needed. If you look to the books of what we believe in the Quran and in the Sunnah, there's a whole chapter that says the application of what? How to select a leader. How to select a leader. How to select a leader for the Muslims. What is his job? What is he supposed to do? What is incumbent upon the people to do? How to pick a leader? What are the qualities of a leader? What are the traits of the leader? What is he supposed to have? What is his responsibilities of implementing the different types of protections, of the hudud, of implementing the penalties? All of these things have been given in detail. We have them. Our religion is perfect. Everything is there. All of it is in detail. How to even treat the leader if he was to fall into something incorrect. We have that It's all in our books. It's all in the kitab. It's in the sunnah. Let's just say our leader is oppressive or unjust and tyrannical. He's a tyrannical leader. We also have text to show how to deal with him if that was to happen in detail. So we do not need to resort to what? Opinions of laws of man. We don't need it. And democracy is giving power to what? To people and man, where they now come with their own opinions and their own feelings and their own ways of what they consider to be good to govern a land. So we do not need the laws or the opinions of man. We don't need it. And we know that democracy, the main, if you want to just sum it up and keep it summarized, the meaning of democracy is giving power to the people. You cannot bring thousands and millions of people with their own different opinions to be unified upon certain affairs. It will never happen. Because Allah, not only when He created the creation, He created them with different minds, different outlooks of what they deem to be good, what they deem to be wrong, what they deem to be good for people, and what they deem to be bad for people. Everybody has their own concept and their own belief of what they deem to be good and what they deem to be bad. Allah knows this in His book. So when Allah sent and He created the human being, He knows that. He knew that they were going to have different understandings and different outlooks and different perspectives on how they look and perceive different affairs. Allah had infinite knowledge of what this was going to take place. That's when He sent the last revelation. Allah wanted to alleviate us from this. Why? Because when He sent the revelation, He sent it with giving us details of how to govern the land, so these affairs would not be left in the hands of the people, so they would be bickering and arguing and all this controversy and all this arguments taking place of this means this right here will be better for the people, this will be tax cuts, this will remove us out of the deficit, this will remove us from us being in debt, this will remove this will allow this, and all in all, you see at the end of the day, it still doesn't work. The proof is in the pudding. You see it outside. Look at the society right now. The poor is being exploited, and the rich are getting rich, and people are losing their minds out here. In 2017 here in America, just from the population, 44,000 fatalities. For matter of fact, 40,000 fatalities just in 1 year, 2017. And it had nothing to do with any other country outside. So they can point the finger at them, it's your fault. 40,000 people in 1 year in America was killed from either drug overdose or fatalities from guns. That's the facts. All you got to do is look at it. That's only 1 year here in this place. 40,000? That's about maybe 100 people a week. And you mean to tell me this system works? So that's the result of democracy. And in actuality, this country isn't even practice democracy. That's a front of what they want you to believe. But at any rate, democracy opposes our religion because we believe that ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one that legislates, not human beings and not man, not women, because this is something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that we were going to differ in. And to alleviate that, Allah gave us perfect legislation and laws. So we wouldn't have to be in this bickering and arguing and controversy. So democracy is giving power to thousands of people. We're the only one that legislates and the only one who governs and the only one who gives. The power of legislation is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the people who are the rulers. The rulers only carry out. They are the ones who execute what Allah has commanded. And it's not a dictatorship. That's something I'll talk about in another occasion. The rulers are people who are considered tanfidh, or ashab al-tanfidh, or sultat al-tanfidhiyah. The power that executes, that carries it out, the commands of Allah. That's only the job of the ruler. And we'll stop here, inshallah. And this is what you have to explain. You have to do things based upon knowledge. And we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one that legislates. And if you do this, you stand firm and you do not what? Compromise. But when you now explain, make sure you're doing it in a respectable manner. Not being rude, but substantiating your statements with knowledge. And having and showing good behavior and etiquette. And sticking to what you firmly believe. But just sticking to what you firmly believe does not have to mean, nor does it necessitate you have to be rude. Or you have to be ignorant. The best type of way to show where people respect you is when you back it up with what? With facts, with evidences, with proofs, because you can never argue the facts. And we'll stop here. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.